sometimes movies that were really pretentious or that were catered to the art crowd or to critics, like movies that movies like oh god, the Unbearable Lightness of Being. I mean, he panned, which was this like totally art house.
That's understandable.
You know, this art house sensibility. And he's like, this is just the most predictable piece of art trash I've seen. He panned the piano.
Oh, really?
The piano, Bad Lieutenant, when that was just like all across the board, like when people were just talking about.
Yes.
When people were talking about
Bad Lieutenants.
Bad Lieutenant and Abel Ferrara, when people were like, he's the new avant-garde auteur, he was just like, this guy's a junkie and an idiot. So he does speak out, and he does give voice to. He was one of the first people to really give a lot of credit and a lot of love to Robert Rodriguez as an auteur, as a filmmaker of pop auteurism. When I remember I read his review of The Faculty, which is a very mainstream alien invasion thriller, a high school alien invasion thriller. And he's like, this is just a totally original, totally entertaining filmmaking. He's like, this is what mainstream filmmaking should be. Well thought out, engaging, entertaining, movies that high schoolers can be entertained and enthralled by, as well as like literate adults. So he was a champion of that school. And he also was one of the first people to really... when Reservoir Dogs came out, that was a film that was panned by and large, and he was the one who predicted that Tarantino was going to become a major voice in cinema with his next film. And then look what happened. His next, Pulp Fiction was next, and he kind of predicted that. When Ebert and Siskel and Ebert panned Reservoir Dogs, almost everyone blew it off, and it became this sort of cult hit. And then later on, everyone was sort of like, when they're champion Tarantino, and they kind of forgot, oh yeah, that's right, I called this guy an idiot 20 years ago. But so won't back down.
So anyway, people should go see him at the Oriental Theater.
Absolutely, Jay Hoberman. It's going to be awesome. And people should just go to the Milwaukee Film Fest. Period.
Yeah,
gosh darn it.
I don't know exactly when it starts and ends, but we are sponsoring one film.
Heck yeah, we are.
I forgot. We should plug this. It's called We Are Legion: The Story of the Hacktivists. What happens when hackers tire of trolling message boards? Enter Anonymous. Oh, question mark. There's a question. That was a question. Enter Anonymous, the hacktivist collective that's redefining civil disobedience through their cyber pranks and information leaks. A modern-day weathered underground, the group uses controversial efforts in the spirit of the free flow of information to undermine governments and secretive organizations. The director, Brian Knappenberger, gains unprecedented access to the Internet's first army, which Time magazine declared to be one of 2012's most influential people in the world. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. Anonymous was on the Man of the Year or something like that, right? Yep. So we're one of the sponsoring organizations for that. So that actually, it says River West Film and Video, but I did want River West Radio to sponsor something, so I consider it River West Radio.
Tight. It's really tight.
Yes, so go to that. And there, I have tickets too. If anyone wants any tickets, come to me. I've got several tickets for it. We should watch it and review it.
Tight.
Because I kind of said we would.
We are going to. We have to.
Okay, good. I've got tickets for you.
Did you know that?
Okay, so let's move on to the sort of the
Pizzle Tizzle Anderson, P.T. Anderson for anyone else out there who doesn't speak Snoop Dogg. This is a filmmaker who, like I mentioned before, is just an entertaining god of the masses. I guess the way that I would break him down is he's a more serious, nuanced, profound, darkly funny, and less ironic Wes Anderson. And in some ways, like a more serious, but I feel like he's sort of in the same school of that he can reach both like really cinephile audiences and also like the mainstream, like the average film goer.
What about how would you compare him to the Coen brothers?
And I would put him exactly in that school, but less ironic at the same time. I'd say a little more serious,
less quirky,
less forced quirky.
I mean, talk about Wes Anderson is very much a stylized filmmaker, where P.T. Anderson films.
They seem more natural. They seem more natural, but they're very
natural
pronounced.
Within this sort of like mainstream mainstream fare.
Yeah.
I mean, if you took him, disembodied his work and put it in another era, it would not seem natural. I mean, it just seems natural because it's the zeitgeist.
It's the zeitgeist.
But the films are sort of like could get lost in the shuffle of many other filmmakers, in my opinion. I mean, that's it. I do think that that's something, you know, when you have a signature style, and I don't mean on purpose, but just almost like by default.
Yeah.
And you know, you could say that, say David Lynch, for example, has it's unmistakable when you see a David Lynch film. It's unmistakable when you see a Wes Anderson film.
Absolutely.
It's unmistakable when you see a Woody Allen's becoming
I would
more
say he's
mistakable.
becoming way more.
But you know, the thing is, I think with Woody Allen, what it is he once upon a time was the only person, the only game in town doing what he does and did. And everybody else caught up with him and started mimicking his style and adopting some of the stylistic choices he makes in his writing and story fare. And that's why it's sort of like the crowd sort of enveloped Woody Allen, where Woody Allen once upon a time was just unmistakably, there was nothing like a Woody Allen film. You know, in the 70s and into the late 70s and early 80s, a Woody Allen film was a radical experience to go to. It was just like there was nothing like it. Now it's you know, also he's older. I mean, he's an older person.
He's more relaxed,
and also he doesn't really control. He's really a writer. And also he was an actor in his films. That's the other thing. He stopped acting in his films, so that made it a lot harder to identify his films. But also he's never controlled the camera as you know, and the mise en scène and all of that. So his stuff doesn't show up on the screen as much. His style doesn't show up on the screen because he leaves it to other experts to do. Do you see what I mean?
He's also from the Bergman school, though, where he works with his cinematographers. He's a huge part. He's a huge part of the editing process, but he leaves the camera movement and framing to the
and the color, the lighting, all of it is very just sort of
what works,
run of the mill in a sense. But it's well done. It's not flashy.
I feel that it's very naturalistic, and there's a glow. There's a certain glow that a lot of his movies have. I think
more the music. With Woody Allen, there's jazz, he always has that sort of
the bouncy jazz,
that upbeat kind of jazz that he plays himself, the clarinet.
I feel that Midnight in Paris is sort of the most Woody Allen film maybe ever made. Anyway, P.T. Anderson. Let's run his filmography real quick.
Okay.
He started off in '96 with Heart 8, which is an incredible first feature, which won raves at Sundance, and which John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Philip Baker Hall was in. And then he went from that to directing the insanely entertaining and funny and culturally astute and a film that says loads about the families and the company we choose, Boogie Nights, 1997's Boogie Nights. And then he went to Magnolia, which was another film about the world we live in, which was based on the songs and the songwritings and the writings of Amy Mann. And then he made a really strange, very psychedelic, drug-influenced and infused Punch Drunk Love, which is on again, off again, my favorite movie. And then he made the very celebrated, disputed, discussed There Will Be Blood.
Right. And then he made The Master.
So he's made some films that are in some ways challenging and in some ways extremely endlessly watchable and overly enjoyable. But he makes
also, you know, when you look at that, he started in, and I'm looking at the internet. I don't have this kind of great memory, but he started in '96, and his last film was made in 2012. He, made a few films sort of like one after another, 1 year after another, but there were some pretty big gaps in time there.
Lately, there has been.
I mean, he went from '99 to 2002, between Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love, and then between There Will Be Blood and The Master was 2007 to 2012. So, I mean, I think there's something to be said for that. That if a filmmaker is very good, very quality, and yet doesn't just pump out a film every year, I think that says something, and it makes for better quality work. I think
I have to agree with that.
For me, I have to say, of all those films, the one that I really love the best, and actually even after seeing The Master, would be There Will Be Blood. That film really did have a strong impact on me.
Yeah.
And I felt, kind of that it was kind of sort of a masterpiece.
It is a masterpiece.
It's hard to tell.
I'd say it's a masterpiece.
It's a little too soon to tell, but it felt that way to me. And I think Boogie Nights is starting to kind of be a film that people it's highly reviewed by people. That people keep going back to Boogie Nights and revisiting it. Probably more than There Will Be Blood.
I'd agree.
As well, now you work at the video store, but as a video store person, I see people renting Boogie Nights all the time. It just keeps renting and renting and renting. Where these other ones, Hard Eight, Magnolia once in a while, Punch Drunk Love sometimes. There Will Be Blood, actually not very often.
Yeah.
But definitely Boogie Nights, people really love. So that's got kind of cult. It's kind
absolutely.
Of a cult.
It's a huge cult classic.
Yeah.
It's list in my book Cult Films. It's actually in comedies in the dramas section. It's the first entry. It's listed as one of the all-time. I mean, right next to the Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
It's listed as one of the most watched and the most highest. I mean, its rating on IMDb is huge. It's a hugely watched movie. I mean, when I talk to movies, when I ask people what their favorite movies are, Boogie Nights is maybe the most common film that comes up among non major cinephiles.
Yeah.
People that are like, oh, I don't know much about it. I'm like, no, you do. You watch movies. That means you know enough about movies to be considered a serious voice. Everyone's a serious voice as long as you watch a movie, So I really feel that Boogie Nights is just. It's such an endearing film, but it's a meaningful film. It's a movie that touches people and scares them and shocks them and just has and the family, this family of pornographers says something about the age that was being ushered in with the internet. Because this was a film that was made in 97 when the internet was starting to really wind up in its first years, and porn was really starting to chew its way into our society more, especially with the internet.
Right.
And I think this film about porn
the result of pornography sort of infusing in our culture more and more, I think how it plays out in real life society is that what is considered crass, what is considered taboo, is becoming more. What that line is just keeps getting further and further.
Yeah.
It is really interesting. You wonder. That's another. My obsession with how science fiction doesn't talk about the future properly, or does kind of a shabby job. It's all about these guys with long jackets who are blowing each other away. If you really want to talk about what's going to happen in the future, that would be one thing. What's going to happen with pornography and sexuality? Is it going to get to a point where, where does it stop? Where does it end? Things are getting, is that a bad thing? Is it such a bad thing for people to be completely candid about sex? I think it's probably healthy. But then, in another sense, it becomes sort of like a fixation and a little bit like a cultural drug.
Oh, beyond. I mean,
like television
when you
and
just look at
everything
the
else.
Accessibility of it and the overindulgence of it. I think a film that does a good job of talking about that is the movie Shame, where it's truly an addiction. He needs his constant porn fix just to get through the day. Here's a guy who's an ad exec, or it's not really specified what it is, because he's good at his job. He went to business school. Right. He's a professional in New York. He looks the part. He's very polished. He's incredibly handsome, sophisticated. He's modern. He lives in this ultra stylish apartment. He works in this ultra stylish business place. He has no friends. He has no connections. He doesn't do anything in his life. I mean, they take away his laptop at work because they're like, yeah, someone must have gotten into your laptop. It's infested with porn, and you've got 1 million viruses. They're like, there's no way that there's 10 people must have hacked into your laptop. And he's just like, yeah. He watches porn while eating dinner. He has all these women that talk to him. He goes on to chat. He has people who he picks up at sex clubs. He has
Wait, what is this? I'm sorry.
It's the movie. It's the movie Shame.
Oh, it's the movie Shame.
Yeah, with Michael Fassbender. It's one of the best reviewed films of last year. And I didn't really. I thought the film failed in some regards, but as a work of art, it's a great piece of filmmaking. But in terms of what sex and pornography has, how it's infused itself into our culture as a mainstay, and as something that's here to stay, I think Boogie Nights and Shame might be the two best.
Well, it's interesting because Boogie Nights is about a previous era of pornography. It's about a decade, or like your parents' pornography, kind of.
Which is what I feel PT does really well, is infusing what's happening today and tomorrow, but in different eras. Whereas There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood was definitely doing that.
And it was right on the curb of the financial meltdown. And here's a film about meltdowns of all sorts. And,
right.
I mean, that shot of the oil well burning with all the fire blowing in the sky. I mean, that to me is the cultural image of the decade.
I wouldn't associate it as much with the financial meltdown as with the war in Iraq.
Everything,
the
exactly.
war for oil. The
war for oil.
And kind of like I thought it was a little bit like about the Bush family.
Us, or something. Everything about our culture. I thought that oil well burning with him indifferently sitting there and sort of smiling at it as they throw a cart with dynamite into it to just see what happens, to blow out an already burning flame of our culture, of our world. I mean, with this like skyless background, with this like dirty, dusty landscape, and him just sort of indifferently watching the sun come up and staring at his money, knowing how much money is below this burning oil well. I mean, to me, that is the artistic moment of the decade. That was like the moment. And I was like, I didn't even realize it till the third time I watched it, and I started sobbing. I was watching this movie at home, and I just paused it, and I was like, holy shit. I'm sorry, holy crap. I was like, this is a profound film. Like, not only is it maybe the funniest movie I've ever seen, but it's like just,
in some ways, I feel like it was kind of also just a film that said like, how did we get here with, where did this all begin with this sort of it was it's very much about America, about
the death of the American dream, I'd say.
But I don't know. Well, in a certain way, it was this person who had gone from, what do you call it? Scrap.
Nothing. Yeah, I mean, he was a guy who was
rabble,
like
scrap,
rags to riches.
Oh well, okay. He went from rags to riches, and he was sort of just, it was like a can-do attitude, He
broke his leg in the beginning. He fell down that well, and he pulled himself out of the well with his fingers, crawled like 15 miles with a broken leg, and, heals himself. Has like a two-man crew, takes an orphan into his custody, and then just builds this empire. In fact, becomes so rich that
that's so
town,
tragic, the thing about the orphan.
Yeah. And that's, I think, about like the children of our society.
And then the use of the evangelist.
The religion aspect of it,
very much of a symbol of America. Well, okay, let's.
The Master. What do you got to say about The Master?
Yeah. Well, I just watched it.
And you watched it in a weird order, too.
Yeah,
which
I got there, and I came in when he was sitting on the picnic bench with a girlfriend who's 16 years old, and he's a sailor, probably in his 20s.
So you got in about a little under halfway. Okay.
Yeah. And I watched the rest of the movie, and it was okay. It was so-so, but I thought that it was it wasn't really, it didn't grab me that much. Then I went back and watched the beginning, and I really liked the beginning a lot.
Well, what happened? What engages you?
Well, this is the thing about this film, is that it's engaging, but not. It's not a film that I think I'm gonna wanna. It's not a film I want to scream off the hilltops about.
Agreed.
It's interesting. It's very well crafted. It's very beautiful. The color,
in what way?
In the craft of the film, the way that it's done.
Sure.
It's very, very well done and very beautifully done. Similar to
Can you give
Tree
me
of
examples?
Life.
Sure. Can you give me examples of like shots or of like scenes or like emotive moments that really like stuck out to you?
Well, the camera work, the movement of the camera was very, very carefully choreographed. The camera, you could tell that the shots were painstakingly done. For example, there's the boat on the river with a party boat, and this whole scene kind of unfolds on the boat, and the camera's moving, the boat is moving,
and then the
and
camera
at a certain
stops.
point the boat moves away from the camera, and you can see that, how many times did they had to do this? Like
But
7
you
or
can
8,
see,
10 times.
and you can see Philip Seymour Hoffman on the deck in perfect light,
Right.
and a lot of that is due to the fact that they shot this on 65 millimeter. There's so many details that are captured within the frame, and there's a wider depth of field because of that.
Yeah.
There's like this huge scope where a lot of things stay in focus, and when it goes out of focus, you see every moment, every line on
They
the film.
played
every
with
line.
focus, yeah.
Very well. I mean, that scene where he's walking up to the boat,
Yeah.
and the boat is in focus, and then it draws out of focus,
Yeah.
and then he draws back in, and he jumps, and the camera keeps moving. And that's an Anderson.
That's just one.
That's a very Anderson touch where he does that, where he does. He's very good at tracking shots that move from left to right. where
Wait,
things-
what you're saying? Anderson touch?
P.T. Anderson.
P.T. Anderson.
The
Okay.
director. He does a lot of tracking shots where it moves from one location to the other, whether by camera movement, zoom, character action, or things in the background becoming the foreground or the focus. It's a common trait that he does in Boogie Nights. He does it in very well in my movie that has the best, in my personal opinion, the best tracking shots and the best camera work in any film I've ever seen. I'm sorry, Punch Drunk Love, which, I mean, the camera moves from left to right, over, up, and down, and all the characters are moving around like in a Howard Hawksian or like a Buster Keaton film, and in that movie, that boat, I mean, there's all these inanimate objects or these moments that are sort of obscure,
Yeah.
where other things become the characters or the meaning, and that boat, where there's no dialogue, has this moment where it's just it's a moment in time, and I'm not sure what it means, but that's the scene from the movie that sticks out in my mind more than anything is the shots of them riding.
That was just one example. I mean, there are a lot of things.
the motorcycle scenes.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Those are
But,
amazing.
they're not.
What do they mean?
I like the location. That
Yeah.
to me was just like location-wise, I was
Yeah.
impressed, and also kind of concept-wise.
What do you think that scene meant? There's a scene where they go into the desert, and Philip Seymour Hoffman
Yeah.
is this sort of L. Ron Hubbard type of philosopher of finding your destiny and your meaning and crafting your own existence, and it's literally, through the other characters like mentions, it's literally a bunch of like financial based nonsense. It's a bunch of crap, self-help crap.
It is, and at the same time, because you're so involved with these characters, you kind of. I mean, I certainly was not.
But I was enthralled.
I wasn't just thinking, "Oh, this guy's a crock."
Yeah.
I felt like he's onto some things. He's. It made me think. People like that. You can't just completely dismiss them wholesale.
agree.
People like that.
There's a
they,
power
They
to them.
still have certain. They are making interesting points, and I felt like what Philip Seymour Hoffman's character was doing. That Master. I forget what his name is in The Master. I felt like what he was doing made sense, especially we're talking supposedly, the 1950s. This is a fictional character, but had he been a real character, it's not so off the mark. He was doing certain kinds of exploration similar to R.D. Laing,
Yeah.
and who was sort of a experimental psychologist, you could say.
Yep.
I think in England, who broke away from the establishment and had a house with all his patients, and he would try experiments and try to figure out, and he would do things like play, do his own crazy behavior with the patient, or like if the patient took off all their clothes, he would take off all his clothes and sit with the patient, or the things like that, to kind of get at their, to try to crack through their psychosis. And a lot of great things came from that. And when I see this film, I felt like there was a similar quality to it, that the things he was doing were experimental, and he was experimenting with psychology in a sense, but he was also going beyond that. He was sort of a philosopher. But I didn't think it was just all a bunch of bogus. I felt like Philip Seymour Hoffman's character was attempting to explore, uncharted territory, uncharted places.
At the same time, I do have to say that I feel that this is what he said is very interesting, and he was genuinely doing this, I think, to chart new territory for humankind. But if anyone, for any moment, questioned even his own words, right. I mean, the guy would just lose it.
That's true with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true with I've seen,
I don't
people who
condone
are
that,
well
though.
respected.
Yeah, I don't.
do that,
But that to me shows like the one.
I mean, this is all again. It's like we're kind of arguing about a fictional character, so it doesn't. It's kind of a moot point anyway. But anyhow, the thing I was going to say about it is that I found it compelling, but at the same time not. It was similar to Tree of Life. I felt like I was really transported into the era in ways that I've never been transported into that era by any other film other than a film from the era. So like, this film was obviously made this year or last year or whatever, but it's about the 1950s. And I didn't live in the 1950s, but they seem to have done such a thorough job of researching that time period and then placing everything in the mise en scène in such a way that it was just very thoroughly done. It looked like they spent a lot of time, choosing every little object in on the screen.
I feel that the sets were
here's
really
the thing,
well done too, though.
Just to finish what I was going to say, the thing about it is I feel like we're spoiled. I feel like Mad Men is, doing that. Tree of Life did it, and this film. But there are many others I can't think of off the top of my head. Films that are doing immaculate jobs of recreating the past, and so when I see it done well, it's like I'm spoiled. I've seen it. I've already seen it done well by all these other filmmakers and. I don't know what you call Mad Men. That's like a series makers. And so it's like, it's great. It's beautiful. I can't deny that. It's extremely well done. Great use of color. Really amazing photography. I love the photographs I love the whole thing that happened in the department store. Those scenes. And then sort of jumping around between I don't know, maybe the Peloponnesian Islands or wherever the film starts. Or Guam or something. Some military island. Some island in the South Seas that the military was. Sitting on during the war, and then jumping into sort of a department store in the 1950s, and then jumping into and I think just like a regular house, which looks like a house in Shorewood or something. All of that it kind of enlightens me about the past. I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I see this is what the 50s might have been like. So I like when films do that. And that's not even like subtext. That's not even. Really, it's just mise en scène text, But for me, sometimes that kind of the language of that can be more important than the story itself,
Absolutely, the language of film.
And I have to say, I love watching. That's why I love watching, a Preston Sturges film or something. It's just, even if the film is ridiculous or the jokes are too obvious,
you're
just looking at that time period, and the things you can kind of get a taste of that time period. This film really does an excellent job of that. Yeah,
with a lot of high competition.
And the acting is great.
Oh, it's definitely gonna. I'd say Joaquin Phoenix is definitely nailing a nomination.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, Joaquin Phoenix, is he? I mean, what is he like this in all his films?
No. He's just a very eccentric actor, and he played that joke on Society with the "I'm Not Here" movie. I'm Still Here. He and Casey Affleck made that pseudo documentary about him, where he pretended to literally be going that off the wall and that crazy. He always plays these emotional meltdowns, though. These emotional.
But is he physically slightly deformed in the way he is in the film, or it's just the way?
No, it was just his posture.
He's
literally just like he wanted to live and breathe the life of an alcoholic.
Does he have the hair lip?
No.
In real life?
No.
So that hair lip was fake. That's very
well done.
Very convincing.
It's incredibly well done.
Yeah.
I think that was something that he got from. I think what that's meant to symbolize is a fight he got in the war.
Yeah.
At least that's what I
just that he's damaged. He's been severely damaged in life.
I agree.
And the scene in the jail cell, Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, that's incredible.
That's maybe the best scene.
He must have really hurt himself.
Oh, he did.
It's a scene. It's a scene where he gets thrown in jail. He's this person who's just like
emotionally completely thrown apart,
and he'll suddenly just flip out, and he's like tries to beat up a bunch of police officers who are arresting
anyone who defies the master's honor. He just flips out.
He's a little bit like Igor in a way, and he gets thrown in a jail cell and then just flips out like a wild animal. He's just
While handcuffed.
yeah, while handcuffed, really handcuffed.
Breaks a toilet with his feet.
He smashes a toilet with his feet, and it's not a fake toilet. I mean,
It's a real toilet.
It's a pretty real toilet. And I mean,
Busts up these
it doesn't have
bunk
water
beds.
in it, and it's made of.
Smashes his head against the bars. I mean, just
Yeah.
while Philip Seymour Hoffman's just standing
I mean,
there.
you're just wondering, like, oh my God, I hope they only did one take of this, because I swear he must have hurt himself physically doing that scene.
Great performances, a great film, great direction, but not a film that either of us seem to be very sold on, or
Yeah.
or a film that seems to mean as much as it thinks it does.
And I have to say, Kristen, who was on last week, Kristen,
Yeah.
she seemed also similar. Like, she loved it, she thought it was beautiful, but yeah, it wasn't a film that, I mean, if I had just come from There Will Be Blood,
I would have been
seeing
like,
it for the first time, I would have just, been.
This is the best film of the
or
year,
Moonrise Kingdom,
or any of these.
We saw, Wes Anderson,
which we raved about on our show.
You couldn't help but just love it.
That's just such a lavish film.
So this was it's not a film that you should
rush to go
not
see.
watch, but it's also not as great as it's not even a terrible. It's not a great film. It's just not. It's just not
the moment.
earth-shattering.
It's not the moment. It's not the earth-shattering moment that I thought it was going to be.
It's a great film, but it's not an earth-shattering film.
I thought this film was going to be the moment. I'll be honest. I thought this was going to be
and then maybe
the
that's
moment.
part of it is that you were really
I had
excited
such high
about it, so then I got really excited about it,
and you were both excited about it. Well, maybe we should have seen the movie with clothes on too. Was part of the problem.
Well, okay. Oh,
so I got. Let's go on for about 3 minutes. I'll quickly review.
Because I was going to ask you one more question about The Master.
Sure.
Because I did have a question.
Sure.
Remember the scene where all the women were suddenly naked?
That's in his mind. He's insane.
Okay, that was in
his mind.
Joaquin Phoenix's mind. Richard. I think his name is Richard in the film.
So Joaquin Phoenix is this completely insane character who just like. People are asking, is he paranoid schizophrenic? Is he just eccentric? Is he a post-traumatic stress disorder? What's wrong with this guy? And the answer is, at the end of the film, I don't know that there's anything wrong with him. And maybe that's what what P.T. Anderson is trying to say, that we're all damaged. That even these people who try to come across as the master, that we're all damaged. That even these masters, even these people who offer perfection, are completely damaged goods. And maybe America is made up of damaged goods, that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us beautiful, is our damage, is our broken pieces. And trying to add them up and fix them maybe isn't the answer.
I agree with the last part. Trying to fix, you just can't, there are certain kinds of damage that you can't fix.
And I think it's what makes us who we are.
People are, they're, the only way you can fix some of those things is it takes a lifetime, and even then it's, people will still be damaged.
And some of it, is it worth fixing?
That's the way it is.
And some of it, unless we're hurting other people, are these real problems? Are these things that need to be fixed? Do we need fixing? Obviously, I mean, my parents are both psychotherapists, so I come from a school of high, but they're both, these were both very spiritual people who didn't believe in fixing people by scientific means. These are people who just believed in talking to people.
Right. And I think that maybe that's ultimately what happened between them, is that it's kind of like a friendship in a sense, between the master
a love. There's a love.
Richard.
There's a genuine love between those two characters that I find watchable. But the way that P.T. Anderson is a challenging and a mysterious filmmaker comes out more in this film than in any other one. There's a lot of there's a long use. There's really strange editing. There's like a really bizarre sense of space and time, and there's moments that seem sort of indifferent, where like all of a sudden there's just like long sequences that seem. I mean, I'll admit I was kind of bored through parts of this, but the more I looked at why is this scene part of it, it's a part of like the whole of maybe that this is a huge portion of what this person's life is like. Loneliness, disquiet, and maybe like an uncomfortable, bittersweet, like melancholy. So the more I've thought about it, the more like the challenging moments of that film might be like the meaning of that film. Yeah. So that's. I
would just want to say I never was bored during this film. It was completely enjoyable. It just wasn't. I don't know. It's not a film that.
It's an I don't know film for me.
Yeah,
it's an I don't know.
Anyway, you had one more thing you wanted to add.
So I got one more thing. So that's our P.T. Anderson stuff. I got a review of the movie Bernie, which just came out on DVD, which I love Richard Linklater. Richard Linklater is a great filmmaker. He's a filmmaker who goes off in a million different directions. He makes any film that suits his fancy. He doesn't stick to one style. He's a filmmaker who, if you watch a movie of his, you can't pinpoint that it's him. He's made everything from Slacker to Dazed and Confused to The Newton Boys, to Bernie, to Fast Food Nation. This guy's made a lot of different.
What's the animation one called?
Oh God! And he made two of these. He made A Scanner Darkly and Tape, which is a very good small film, which is based on a great play, and also Waking Life, which was a film that a lot of people was their introduction to sort of strange or counterculture cinema.
Before Sunset and After.
Before Sunrise and Before Sunset. Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, which I love as a single film entity, even though they were made 6 years apart. I just absolutely love, especially Before Sunset, is a film that just tore me apart into a million pieces because I was getting over a pretty dark breakup around the time that I saw that movie, and that movie really just actually helped me deal with some of the pain I was going through.
I often refer to Slacker as a film that fits a kind of category that's very much a very unique kind of category where he made a new kind of film.
Yes.
He made a film in a way that had never been made before, that worked conceptually. You could almost make a whole series of films like it.
Just endless non sequiturs.
Well, no, but there was a sequence to it, which it was structurally, you start with one character, and then the next person they meet.
And then it goes off with them. One scene with them.
Keep going and going, and it's basically just one long day.
And
I think that was an incredible. I like those kind. I mean, as a person who dabbles in filmmaking, that's a kind of cinema that I am very attracted to. Is when someone just stumbles on a whole new concept. I mean, it's not something you never necessarily want to see people do over and over again, but it really worked. It was really a cool concept. It was like a whole new
slice of life,
different idea about how you could structure a movie
and look at society and people.
Another one just that I always put together with that is Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is a film that just is this crazy repeating loop. You just keep doing the first scene over and over again through the whole film, and it works. It works. It's a little crazy. It makes you a little crazy.
I think a film that's really similar to Slacker is in terms of how you follow groups of characters, and then what their branch goes off to is another scene is The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie by Buñuel, which is a film where characters keep waking up within dreams, and then have these series of dialogues and scenes together where it turns out they're in another dream. He also did that with another movie, The Phantom of Liberty, and The Milky Way is another film that follows that sort of course where characters keep doing random things and running into new events. But I think Linklater did it in a way that was more approachable by outsiders and by
hipsters.
Hipsters, yeah, absolutely. It's the ultimate hipster film. But his new film, Bernie, which
I just wanted to make one point about The Discreet Charm.
Sure.
I feel like I'm like working for the Milwaukee Film Festival, even though I am not at all. I'm not. They haven't paid me to do this, but The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie is showing. And there's a film on the screen.
That's the other film that is being that's being opened by a film critic. There's another film critic that's opening The Discreet Charm, and I can't remember who it is.
Oh, okay.
It's not Jay Holberman. It's the other guy, who's another film scholar, and that I would love to go to, but it's at a time when I'm not able to make it. Because The Discreet Charm is one of my I just love that movie. It was a hugely influential film in terms of outdoor photography and in terms of daylighting, and also in a form of storytelling which I'd never seen before as a kid. When I saw it as a kid, it just blew my mind. I to this day still have never seen something at least poetically and politically that kind of equals it. It just has this power and this charge.
Okay, Bernie. Tell us about Bernie.
So Bernie.
I really want to see this film.
Reunites Linklater with Jack Black, who
I can't stand.
Who previously teamed up on School of Rock, which is one of the only films which I love. Jack Black.
Actually, I shouldn't say that's too harsh. He just of all those people, he's just not my favorite. So
here's a film about Bernie who encapsulates this metrosexual, possibly closeted homosexual, funeral caretaker man who just is the most beloved person in this small Carthage in Texas, who's just this loved figure. He's the most likable. He's the most cultured. And he's just this enigmatic person who just is mysterious and kind of untouchable, but everyone's friends with him and everyone loves him. And he's the best mortician, it seems ever. He just makes people look beautiful, and he loves people. He loves life. And this woman, played by Shirley MacLaine, comes along, who's a widow, whose husband he did the service for. She has no friends, and she has all this money, and she's always wanted to live her life sort of at the very end, but she's so miserable and such a bitch that she's never been able to. Here comes Bernie, who's like very cultured but doesn't have enough money to travel, so they become travel buddies together, and she sort of falls in love with him, and there's sort of this possibility of late life romance. This is all told around people who saw this event, who are people who lived in the town, who actually play themselves in several scenes. There's people who play themselves, and there's people who are characters that are played by major actors. Matthew McConaughey doing this role as someone who's in the pseudo interview role. This is a tactic that was taken in the movie Lenny, where they interviewed actors playing real life people, where they do a pseudo documentary take, but they also dramatize the majority of the scenes in the movies. And I gotta say, Jack Black is just so freaking likable. Here's what I thought about this movie: hilarious, engaging, endearing, light, natural, brilliant, sweet, good-natured, honest, and just full of life. A great slice of Southern small comfort pie with these pseudo interviews that feel so real, alive, and true. Bernie, as played by Jack Black, is one of the most likable and winning characters, and it's hard not to take his side as the murder mystery unfolds in the film. And it's just damn near impossible not to cheer for him and to feel like a member of the community. It's well edited, naturally shot, and every element of filmmaking in this movie is impeccable. McConaughey, as of late, is just perfect. Movies that he's been in the last 4 years, I just find it almost impossible not to like him. Jack Black is easily Oscar-worthy. McClane seems real and invested in her character. This is an intelligent, humble, spot-on comedy, a rare heartfelt treat of comedy, a rare heartfelt work of art. It's a bittersweet tragedy and one of the year's best. It's easily Jack Black's best performance yet.
Wow. What about Richard Linklater?
Linklater, it's just another great film and a great filmmaker's filmography.
And how would you compare it with The Master?
I liked it much more. I watched it the night after. I watched it later that night after I saw The Master, and I was just like, this is much more earnest and much more honest, and I get what this film is trying to say without it trying to give me a million layers. Granted, I think The Master is a more important and a more potent film that has more artistry behind it.
Right.
But I feel like Bernie is an honest film with a lot of just charm and a lot of happiness in it. Whereas I feel The Master is a very ugly and a very mean film.
Really?
that has a lot of life and it has a lot of honesty, but a lot of that honesty is just very. And I understand this is a movie my mom would hate. She's like, ugh, I felt terrible after I walked out of it.
Which one?
This is a movie. My mom, remember when
she felt terrible after she saw The Master.
Well, she saw There Will Be Blood, and she was like, "Why would I watch an ugly film like this?
Right.
Why would I want to feel this way?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, I understand you don't want to go to see a movie to have something be." I mean, my mom's a very aware, very culturally astute person, but she wants to go to a movie to be entertained.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not always like that.
Yeah.
But this is a film that my mother would hate.
The Master.
I'll just put that on. Yeah, The Master. Okay. Whereas my mom would love Bernie, and she'd probably buy it.
Okay. Yeah, but I was good. When you were saying that, I realized, that's true. I felt that way coming out of There Will Be Blood. Is just that there's just
darkness.
It was like there's just a dark hole in the world, and the same thing with The Master, a little bit. It's
dark hole.
There is, but then there was something a little hopeful too.
There's a beauty to it.
There was something a little hopeful. And I just want to make a comparison to Todd Solondz on that. Todd Solondz films just leave you feeling like, wow, the world is a really
But it's a beautiful
empty place,
but it's an ugly place.
One last thing about since you reviewed Bernie and we talked about Before Sunrise and Before Sunset.
Yes.
2013, Richard Linklater is going to make a film called Before Midnight.
Woo!
So he's working on it now. Okay, so on that note,
I love those movies.
With that, I guess we're pretty much done.
We are done.
Wrap it up.
All right, gangsters.
It's almost 1 a.m.
Yep.
Here in Milwaukee.
We'll see you next week, okay? Tight.
Yeah, next week, and you're going to have a different guest.
I'm having a
co-host.
I'm having a new co-host on. I'm having my friend Robert Lang come on, and we're going to see how it goes once in a while. Zav's got a lot on his plate. We're gonna just see what's going on. I'm going to have my buddy Robert Lang come on. We're going to see what he knows about movies. We're going to see what he knows about culture. We're going to see what he knows about life. So we'll see you next week. We'll see you soon. Later, gangsters.